Welcome, everybody. This is going to be an exciting time. I'm going to introduce one of my favorite people in the world, the dynamic and energetic and insightful Sandra Champlain, who's the author of We Don't Die and also has the radio program of the same name that's hugely popular as we do the AREI registrations, and we ask people how they learned about AREI and about the symposium. They always, many of them will say it was from Sandra Champlain's We Don't Die radio. So I'm anxious to hear what Sandra has to say today about her questions that she has had answered and what it is that she's learned. So without further ado, we'll just give it over to Sandra.
Hello, everyone. And this goes to people watching the replay and those that are here live. I know I have many friends that wanted to join and watch it right now, but they couldn't. So I understand. So you're welcome to watch the replay, and I'm glad you're here. And first, just a big thanks for being here. There's plenty of places you could be at this hour of your day. We have people watching from all over the world, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I want to thank the AREI, the Afterlife Research and Education Institute. Little did I know long ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now and be affiliated with such a powerful group of people with so much love and compassion that are really out to share the reality of the afterlife, help people through grief, and help people have a powerful life. And so that's why I'm here. That's part of my mission as well. A little bit about me. I am indeed the author of the book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And I brought the copy to show you what it looks like. Little shameless plug for that. And I'm also the host of We Don't Die Radio, which is on iTunes and YouTube. And I now have 257 hours of episodes of interviewing really great people about why they believe in the afterlife. There's a lot of talk to help through grief and also some great tools about living life. And why am I doing this? Where did this all come from? Originally, back in the mid-90s, I went through a tremendous fear of dying. And my mom speculates it's because I worked in nursing homes and saw a lot of death. I really don't know exactly why it all started, but it had me go on a very secret journey. Is there any evidence of the afterlife? And I didn't do this so I could share it with anybody. In fact, I knew I would never share my findings with anyone because I used to think people that spoke about the afterlife and angels and metaphysics were a bunch of, well, I would call them weirdos, and so the last thing I would ever think is that I would be in this chair today on this live Zoom meeting. But here's what happened. In a very short amount of time on my journey, I got introduced to so many different things, which I'll be talking about right now, this evening, or this morning, wherever you are. And they're all different things that had me really believe that the afterlife was reality. Now, after I got much of my information, in fact, my book was published in 2013. I have so much more, and that's why I'm so excited about bringing you the latest evidence that I have right now. But I had no intention of telling anyone because I got to the place where my fears were rested. But I'm no author, I'm no smart person who's ever going to listen to me. I have a day job of being a chef. I work with race car teams, traveling the country of the United States with my mom. So I didn't think anybody would think I was a credible expert on the subject. So I kept my mouth shut. And of course, as things would go, I'd be sitting next to somebody on an airplane that would lose a loved one. And I had this guilty conscience that I really should tell people about what I knew, but I didn't at that time. Fast forward to 2010, my dear father passes away, and I went through the most dark, depressing time of my life through grief. I was very close with my dad. In addition, I had real close relationships with my family members, and as we often hear how siblings fight when a parent dies, that's exactly what happened in our case, and I became estranged from some of my siblings. And the depression was awful. I could understand at that time how people contemplate ending their lives or actually do. Grief does cause quite a bit of suicide. But something unpredictable happened. Out of the blue, all of a sudden I got this idea to study grief. And I don't know where this idea came from, but it gave me direction. I wanted to know questions. Why does grief have to hurt so bad? What is grief? And I ended up finding these things about chemical changes in the brain, and this whole world opened up to me, and also some things to help ease pain. So I took everything I put together, and I created this audio called How to Survive Grief. It still exists. And I started giving it away on Facebook. And in a matter of just 3 months after my dad died, over 3,000 people had heard it. And long story short, people started writing me that they chose not to commit suicide because of my words. My words, I wasn't talking about life after death. I was just talking about grief. But I knew then that if this is helping people through the pain of grief, if it's giving people some things to alleviate the pain, I need to get it out to the biggest population I could. And so, you know, as luck has it, I meet a publisher and I pitch my story, and I've never written before in my life. How soon can you have this written? And within 2 months, We Don't Die was written, and just a few months later, it was published. The thing, why I titled it We Don't Die, and I believe a few things. Number one, I wanted to get that grief information to as many people as possible. But number two, most people aren't looking for a grief book when they lose a loved one. But I knew I wasn't alone on this search. Is there any proof of the afterlife? So I had to have a good talk with myself and say, Sandra, be brave. Share what you know about the afterlife. Title it We Don't Die. I deliver upon that. I slide in a chapter that is about grief. And then I also talk about how to have a powerful life. Because if we aren't, or if we don't die, then what the heck is our life about, right? So I love that AREI and this group really embraces helping humanity live a good life as well. So if it's okay with you all, I would like to share my screen and just show you why I believe in the afterlife. All right? I don't have great technology, so if you end up seeing some things you shouldn't, I apologize, but here we go. Let's see. Okay, this is where we're going to start out. Hopefully this is working. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Okay, why I'm showing this screen first is just because I'm so grateful to our friends with the Afterlife Research and Education Institute who put on these weekly global Zoom meetings on all kinds of different topics, in fact. And this coming September, we will be having the Afterlife Symposium in Scottsdale, Arizona. And if you're watching this sometime in May or beginning of June, there's still some discount pricing, but this is the best place on planet Earth to find out about the afterlife. So many great speakers will be there, and there'll be probably close to 800 people that will become your friends for life. So let's move right along if I can figure how to. Here we go. My next screen is, I created this because there are people that think there's no way the afterlife is real. Can't be proven. It's never going to happen. A lot of us feel uncomfortable talking to our friends and family about the afterlife because we don't want them to think we're crazy. But I want to introduce you to some people that the world thought was crazy. And on the top left, we have our friends Orville and Wilbur Wright, who even the US government laughed at them. There's no possibility that you could have a flying machine. And thanks to them, look at the world we live in. Commerce and so much cannot happen without the airplane. These are two men that never gave up on their dreams, and look where we are now. Thomas Edison, fantastic man, failed over 1,000 times to create the light bulb. All of the world thought he was a raging lunatic, that there's no way this is going to happen. The world says maybe people in America will go for this thing called electricity, but certainly not anywhere else in the world. And because of Thomas Edison, we're speaking today. We have lights and electricity and so many other inventions. In fact, before Thomas Edison passed away, his last few words were, "It's very beautiful over there." He's one of those stories that he looked up into heaven and could see into the hereafter. And those were his final words. And one of the things he was working on before his death was an instrument to try to record voices of our loved ones in the hereafter. And Henry Ford, too, I just love him. He was a strong believer in reincarnation, that he couldn't have been as smart as he was by just having one life. And people laughed. There's no way there's going to be a horseless carriage. It will never happen. So I want to just open up everybody's mind to, as human beings, we have this inner voice that's not necessarily our friend. And it, doesn't necessarily say nice things to you. It's the one that says we're going to lose a few pounds, or I'm 52 years old, still single. That voice says I'm going to be a spinster all my life, never find love. But is it true? No. But that's what our voice does in our mind. So this great quote by author Arthur Schopenhauer says, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. And if you look at these 3 examples, living here we are in 2018, of course it's self-evident. All these things are just natural to us, right? They're all regular, and so many more things. But once upon a time, people thought there's no way it's possible. And in the world of the afterlife communication, folks, I'm going to tell you that many years from now, they won't even believe that people would have thought afterlife wasn't real. So this is a beautiful picture, I think, it's called Goodbye and Welcome by artist Charles Santosa. He had a great visual that here the family is crying by the bedside of grandma, and meanwhile grandma's being welcomed by grandpa and all the relatives and even the dog and the cat, and she's stepping into the afterlife. And I'm hoping by the end of this conversation that we're having right now that you will have more faith and really get it, that the afterlife is real and your loved ones surround you and support you all the my 10th reason to believe that and the evidence of the afterlife is evidential mediums. And these are some of our most favorite people. Here we have Suzanne Wilson, Mark Anthony, the lawyer who's a medium. We all know Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo, Tony Stockwell from the UK. I've also included a picture of the Arthur Findlay College, which is a place you can go and learn mediumship. And through evidential mediums, you're talking to a person and they tap into your loved ones in the hereafter, and they can very accurately sometimes give you some details. And is everybody a medium? Are there good mediums? Are there bad mediums? Unfortunately, there are people and courses that you can take for just 2 days and you can get certified as a medium. And unfortunately, a lot of those mass-produced people might not be the best people to visit. So if you're looking for a medium, you always want to go by a good recommendation of someone who's had one before. Now, on top, there's the Spiritualist National Union, snui.org. And this next slide I'm going to show you is only because if you go to the website, snui.org, it's a place that teaches so many things involved with spiritualism and involving mediumship. There's practice demonstrations that you can be part of an audience and mediums will demonstrate. A couple of times a week, they have online spiritual services where in spiritualism, at the end of every service, there are mediums that do readings on the audience. And why I'm so passionate about this is it's only 21 British pounds a year to join, and $28 US to join for a year. And many of us live where we can't physically go to meet up with people. And I want to give you an example. Just yesterday, I tuned into one of their global services. There were only 4 people that attended. Only 4, and they almost closed it, but they decided to go on in case more people would like to join. And at the end of the service, the medium will start saying who's in the room. And she identified my dad as to what he looked like, where the pain was within him, some other details very specific to my father. And day before yesterday, I was out mowing my lawn. I really didn't want to. And then I found this old pair of those garden shears, what those are, those really old things. And I was trimming around the edges of the lawn. I'd never done that before. And didn't this medium say yesterday that she's seeing a garden and a lawn being mowed and this pair of old clippers. And this was coming through from my father. And there's no way that this medium who was in another country could have identified that. And I got a very close personal message from my father. So I can't recommend this enough. The price is cheap, and yeah, it's really a great resource for getting a reading. Number 9, I have deathbed visitations. And we've heard this so many times. Just before someone passes away, they could get a boost of energy and, look over the loved one's shoulders and be seeing into heaven. Steve Jobs, famous for Apple computers, his last few words were, "Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow." And Martha Atkins, she's going to be a guest on my show in the upcoming future. She's got a brilliant TED Talk, and she's actually done research on this and has written a book about it. And one of my favorite stories was a young boy who was in hospice, and just before he passed away, he was telling his family and the nurse in the room that he was playing with 3 boys, and he gave the first name of 3 young boys. And come to find out, those 3 boys were the last 3 children that had died in that room. So they were there helping bring him into heaven. So deathbed visitations are just fantastic. Induced after death communication and grief reattachment therapy. You recognize somebody who's on our Zoom meeting right now, Craig Hogan. There's a great thing about getting into a quiet mental state and with a certain procedure, being able to tap in and reconnect with our loved ones. Craig Hogan's got a wonderful self-guided one that we can share a little bit. Botkin and Rochelle Wright are absolutely brilliant. They take people that are heavily grieving and they can put them in a state, and it has over a 90% success rate of connecting them with their loved ones. And as far out and futuristic as that may sound, it's very real, and there's lots of great testimonials. If we had more time, we can discuss this, but I have interviewed all 3 of these people on We Don't Die Radio. So if you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and check out Rochelle Wright, Alan Botkin, and Craig Hogan, you can hear more about this whole procedure, but it is miraculous. I'm including just 2 examples right here. I had the privilege of talking to Susan Messino, who's a mom, who told me the story of her young son. From the very earliest times he could talk, he was having these nightmares about going down on a ship. And as soon as he could start drawing, he started drawing pictures like you see here. Now that picture looks very close to the Titanic. In fact, the older he got, the more drawings were more specific. He could actually draw the layout of like the floor plan of the Titanic. And you can see that there's only smoke coming out of 3 out of the 4 smokestacks he would ever draw having smoke coming out of them, not the 4th. And when she asked her son, he says, well, we built the ship that way because it had to look. Well, sure enough, Titanic, only 3 stacks worked and 1 was a dummy stack. So very interesting. And many people know about James Leininger, who was a little boy who always told these stories about being in the South Pacific. And sure enough, they found a man named James Houston who he had the exact story. This young James had his memories. In fact, he would talk about his friends who were all proven to exist. He would talk about his sister Anne, and you'll see that young James is actually being reunited with James Houston's sister Anne. So I just think I can't get enough of reincarnation stories, and there's so much out there about reincarnation. Electronic voice phenomena, very near and dear to my heart, as I am someone who getting my first EVP was what gave me the confidence that I could share. And I had gone on a retreat, learned about recording what's called white noise. And in this case, I used raindrops in the background. And this was a course I had taken from Tom and Lisa Butler, who have written the book, There Is No Death and There Are No Dead. And on my recorder, I recorded for a minute the sound of rain. And I had first asked my loved ones if they're really there. And if I'm really meant to help the world believe in the afterlife, I need them to talk loud, and then I'll say good night. And what you hear on my recording is a man saying, good night, Sandra. And then you hear 2 women's voices going, good night, and then a man's voice saying, good night. And it sounded like rather computery, because I hear they use the sounds that are inside the recorder. But that moment changed my life. I went on to record hundreds of these EVPs. And now somebody who's going to be at the symposium in September is Dr. Sherry Pearl, who teaches us how to do that. And it's just magnificent, the work she's doing. I've interviewed her a couple of times. I've interviewed Tom Butler. I've interviewed people talking about this soul phone. And there's a lot of excitement that someday, and it is coming, we will be able to use our technology, and I believe to be able to text our loved ones and record their voices. And it's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. And just know that there is science and technology working on this today. Visual instrumental, I spelled instrumental wrong, transcommunication. This is using video and different things to capture our loved ones. And I'm so privileged that at our symposium, Sonia Rinaldi is going to be our keynote speaker. Now, she has recorded many voices of children, actually, and played them for parents. And has only given it away. I mean, a pure earth angel, but she's also involved in video technology. And she was explaining bubble wrap, and you can see this Tia Luisa, and she would actually put a piece of this bubble wrap just in front of the face of the woman, who remains the same in the three images. And as she's filming it, the image would change to the person's loved one. So how that happens is just another miraculous thing that our friends in the afterlife are learning to do, but they're able to put their faces now on these recordings. In the top right, you can see George Meek, who was an ITC, Instrumental Transcomunication researcher before his death. And you'll see the Orion Silver Star name there. What was being filmed was actually a bowl of water, and it was being rattled around, and the face appeared in the recording. Macy, who actually can take pictures of people as they live, and their loved ones' faces appear through them. And I would have thought that was a little bit of a hocus pocus, but I saw him live, and I actually sat next to a woman who, when she received her Polaroid image of herself, she had a long, skinny face, and she had her mouth shut, and what appeared over hers was a picture of her daughter with a big smile, big round face, big hair, and it was beautiful. This woman didn't know if her daughter had jumped off a building, committing suicide, was pushed off, and all the heartache ended when she realized her daughter lived on. And anyways, terrific. Spirit artists are phenomenal. Reverend Rita Berkowitz is someone who is in Massachusetts. She's now recently retired, but I had a session with her, and she brought my grandmother through and my father, told me who they were, doing an evidential reading, and then she sketches pictures. And these are just some examples that she has on her website, which is thespiritartist.com. Sandy Ingham is the #1 top radio show I have, that I got the goosebumps the most amount of times with her evidence of afterlife. It's a show worth listening to. She does the same thing. She, in fact, she works with some mediums who are on stage, and as they're doing the reading on a person, she is drawing the picture of who she sees. And she goes into trance doing this, and she's not aware what's happening, and her hand moves, and it's brilliant. Near-death experiences are always a favorite of so many. I mean, there are millions of recorded stories that are so similar just before, after people have flatlined on a table. Some of my most favorites, Anita Morjani, Dying to Be Me. She had a full physical healing after she was on her deathbed with cancer, filled with cancer. Her cancer turned around, she became healthy, and I don't know if it's 10 or 15 years later, she is talking about the reality of the afterlife. Nancy Rhines, a scientist, an atheist, former, and I interviewed her. She's got a great story. Dr. Raj Parti was someone who didn't believe either, and I'm so grateful I could interview him and just talk about how his life turned around because of having his near-death experience. Dr. Raymond Moody is the person who first coined the term, and I'm including a picture of Ken Ring there on the bottom because so many people think it's just our brain shutting down, right? You've probably heard that. Ken Ring went one step further and only studied the near-death experiences of people who were blind. And yes, they rose out of their body, they went to the light, and so many of them saw things that were actually happening on Earth and documented it, and they couldn't have done it without vision. And so rest assured, when we transition to the other side, to the hereafter, if you have any ailments at all, you will be restored to new again. Trance Mediumship is one of my all-time favorites. In fact, on June 9th, I'm going over to the Arthur Findlay College and taking a course. And this is where we can close our eyes. We can get into an altered state, connecting with our own soul, with deceased loved ones, and see what happens. People are known to write and have documented people who have actually lived on Earth. You know, people have written letters to loved ones and beautiful things. Mark Bedwood is a friend of mine who was in my last class, and he actually does a trance demonstration on one of my episodes that his we call him guide or friend or control actually speaks through him, a Chinese man. And why I'm including the picture from the movie Ghost is there is a form of trance mediumship that, do you remember when Patrick Swayze stepped into Whoopi Goldberg and could deliver a message to the wife, Demi Moore? Well, I've actually witnessed, and this is rare, but it is possible for some trance mediums to actually allow someone's loved one to step in them and be able to speak to them. Now, the voice will still be the medium's voice, but I tell you, one of the things I'm committed to is helping mediums become trance mediums and be able to offer this to clients. I've seen it. It's incredible. And then Jose Madrado is a pretty famous artist. He will go into trance, and very often with his eyes closed, artists from the spirit world can use his hands and create works of art. So you can see all the different images below. He's got just probably thousands of paintings, and they're all done in the style of those artists who once lived. Pretty amazing. Physical mediumship. I'm delighted to say that two of the most famous physical mediums, in fact, I think personally they're the best, that are practicing and doing demonstrations will be at our symposium. And this to me sounds so Ghostbuster, outrageous. How can it be? It really boggles my mind. I have been so afraid to share this with people because I think people will think I'm a lunatic, but I believe with my heart of hearts it's real. Let me paint the stage for you. You can see on the top, Banyan Retreat in the UK is a place that offers these seances. In fact, if you are someone coming to the symposium, there's a possibility that there might be an opportunity to attend one of these seances. It'd be separate from the symposium, but if you are interested in that, I can let you know how to contact me. And if that opens up, we will definitely be in touch. But the room is dark. And which, leads the mind to say, well, if it's dark, maybe there's a magician there. But no, the medium is actually strapped down very tightly to the chair. And you can see David Thompson, this white stuff coming out of him. Well, that white stuff is called ectoplasm. And again, sounds very Ghostbuster-like, but I'm going to tell you a nice story about Ghostbusters in a second. But our loved ones can use their I think it's called ethereal body, and actually step into this veil and make themselves real again. And I have the picture of Dan Aykroyd there because I, for the longest time, had a problem saying seance or ectoplasm because I really thought people would think I'm a lunatic. And, I don't talk openly about this either. I don't, not telling people everywhere, except for people interested on the radio show and here in the Zoom meeting. But Dan Aykroyd's father had the chore of cleaning up his father's belongings after he passed away. So in this big chest, inside this chest were all kinds of documents in notebooks about the seances that had the people they had, the people that rematerialized that were long dead. So young Dan Aykroyd grew up hearing stories of ectoplasm and Ghostbusters, and that's the basis of, his comedy, Ghostbusters. So you don't have to feel strange in sharing it. I bring up Leslie Flint, who's in the blue picture up at the top. He actually would have a ectoplasmic voice box that would be on his shoulder and could speak separate from himself. Sometimes he was in trance, sometimes he wasn't. And these voices, people would step in and would be able to talk to their loved one. And there are thousands of hours of recorded conversations through Leslie Flint. In fact, Mary Beth Mann Spank, I believe is her full name. She is going to be doing a presentation, and it's going to include some of the works of Leslie Flint. And he was extreme. No one could prove him to be a fraud, that he could throw his voice and give accurate communication. Scott Milligan you'll also meet him at the symposium along with David Thompson. He is a practicing physical medium who I get to see at Banyan Retreat. And he's my friend, and he's going to do a couple of presentations at the symposium. Passionate young man to help bring physical mediumship back to the planet. You know, it died long ago. Many people died over the course of many wars, and people thought this is fraudulent, and certainly there were a lot of con artists that came about and would con people for their money. So the art of physical mediumship, it didn't die out completely, because there are hundreds of these home circles that are practicing around the world, getting communication with their loved ones and people in the spirit world. But I can understand why they aren't coming out, because it can sound so skeptical, something that happens in a dark room, so people stay quiet and undercover about it, but it's real. And then Alec Harris was probably the most well-known medium that instead of being in the dark, very often there would be just very low light or red light. And it is said that over 20 people per night would step in and actually rematerialize. Pets would come through. And I know to many this might boggle the mind and seem impossible, but there's so many things that we don't understand. We don't understand how our cellular technology works, and it's real. So I say just give it time, and it's fascinating. So another reason to go to the symposium, though, and see some of this, people speak about these things. And then, Ann Harrison is with us here in our Zoom group right now. This is a little picture of Dan Aykroyd and his father talking about their belief in the afterlife. Our creator of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, he sure believed in spiritualism. Stuart Alexander, I've had the pleasure of meeting, and he is a physical medium as well. Doesn't practice all that often, but he has a wonderful book and wonderful stories. And then our friend Ann Harrison, who is on the call, she herself has written a beautiful book. She runs Saturday Night Press. Her husband had written this book, his name was Tom Harrison, Life After Death, Living Proof. Phenomenal book that is an ectoplasmic person. I believe it's on ag coming through. Ann will tell us to be sure. But it's just fantastic. Can you get my excitement? I think so. So just to close this out a little bit, Carl Jung had this great quote: "I shall not commit the fashionable stupidity of regarding everything I cannot explain as fraud." And I know it's a human tendency to not believe in things, but think about those people that didn't believe in the airplane or electric light or the automobile. You don't have to tell anybody you're interested in this afterlife, but I want to tell you, if you be part of the AREI, if you can come to the symposium, do so. Get together on these Zoom meetings with these like-minded people, because believing the afterlife, it transforms your life. I mean, I am living the best life, and none of this would have happened if my dad didn't die the way he did, and if I didn't go on this adventure. So many people to this conversation are grieving. And I know of this pine cone, and bear with me here, but this serotinous pine cone is one that it requires extreme heat from a mighty blaze for it to open and for it to grow. for the seedlings of these pine trees to grow. So I had this thought that grief is the most painful thing that we human beings are going to have to deal with, I believe. And it has the power to destroy us or transform us. And so many that I've met have told me that it was in the hardest times in our life, that actually got all of us on our spiritual journey. So if you are going through a time that a loved one has passed, first of all, I give you everything I've got to help you through the pain and help you believe that your loved one's around. But I also think you're open for a wonderful adventure in the future as to find out who you really are and find out the miracles that are part of life and find your own spirituality. So, our sincere wish, this is all I believe, is for you to allow your grief to set you on a journey of self-discovery, a journey where you'll know that you're an eternal soul having a human experience, that your loved ones invisibly surround you and cheer you on, and that you are dearly loved. So great resources on the replay of this, which everyone will be able to find in about, several days or so. You can go to victorzamet.com/Zoom. All the upcoming Zoom meetings are there, and then there'll also be a replay of this one. So you'll be able to replay and get to some of these, find out more about some of these things that I talked about tonight. I do definitely, let me get out of stop sharing. I definitely want to give you the gift of, if you go to my website, which is WeDon'tDieRadio.com, there'll be a few freebies that pop up if you join what I call the Insiders Club. And it's a free copy of my book in PDF file of We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death, although it says it's only a few chapters, the whole book, but also that healing audio of how to survive grief. And I actually created, before I created this PowerPoint, something called Sandra's 19 Reasons to Believe in the Afterlife, because there's actually some more things. So I have that available to you as well.
Sandra, thank you. That was wonderful, as always. Enjoyed having you, and always look forward to speaking with you. And we got lots to do in the future, so we're just going to keep up this dialogue. This is only one little speck of dust in this huge mound that we're building that is going to eventually have an effect on humankind. So thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. And I'm your partner for eternity. I recognize that this is the group that will change the conversation on planet Earth. And there's no place else I'd rather be than a part of it. So thank you for allowing me the privilege to be part of AREI.